For now, we have had a bit of a heating crisis here because all of this work on the stove meant that at times I wasn't able to run it, and as you can see outside, there's even a bit snow on the ground already. Quite fresh. Quite cold, I should say. So yeah, it's a good thing at this time of year when you're able to heat your shop properly. This is the wood stove I'm using for quite a while already. And recently I've also converted it to burn waste oil. Recently, due to old age, one of the panes on the side cracked, and I had to replace it with a piece of sheet metal painted. As you can see, the paint doesn't really hold up very well to the heat, and it's slowly coming off, but other than that it's fine. It's tight enough. Unfortunately, that's the side where I was not going to have my waste oil inlet, because that's on the other side. So actually I had to take out the window pane on that side as well and replace it with just exactly the same sheet, only here I did some other changes as well. As you see here, it has a hole. This is intended to go very not very easily. So I made a hole where the oil inlet goes through, and of course if I'm using it to burn wood, like now, then I'm shutting it again. I might make a grip on that as well to make it easier to open and shut it, but on the other hand, it's either one or the other. I'm not using it all that often, so it's fine. Then you see a screw here, the center of the screen. That's where I'm mounting or hanging my oil burning installation, which I will show you shortly. So here's my oil burning attachment, if I may call it that. It consists very simply of a piece of pipe connected to a T-piece. 28 millimeters is the dimension of the pipe. The T-piece has the leg going out to a 50 millimeter pipe, which is where I put in the oil through a small funnel. Then I have a fan. This is actually the fan from an old network switch, which I happen to have because I work in that field. I even have more than one of them, so in case it fails, I could easily replace it with exactly the same type. And yeah, that's of course a good thing to have, because it would be really a waste of time if you were going through so much effort to build something like this, and then your fan fails and you can start over again. It has already taken an extraordinary amount of time to get to where I am now, and that's yeah, a lot of work is what it has been. And I also want to thank two people especially, and that's first of all fixmakeit on YouTube. Check his channel out. He has shown an oil burner there which looks very much like this. Actually it looks actually I copied his design more or less. I had went through a few iteration stages to get it to run properly, and this is what I ended up with. But initially I went for his solution. The other person has been around in the oil burning circuit for much longer on YouTube, and that's Oilburner. And one of the missing links in the proper functioning of the whole installation came from his piss pot burner video, and that's where he briefly explained the use of a baffle. And that was actually a very important improvement, although it doesn't look like much. But if you have this, the business end, so to say, going into the pot, it blows oil, but also cold air. And if you blow it directly into your pot without a baffle, then the cold air cools down the pot, and that is really a problem with small oil burners. Everything's fine as long as you put in an infinite amount of oil, but if you want to go a bit smaller, then you have a challenge of keeping up the temperature in the burn chamber. And one of the ways to improve that is to use this baffle, so that the cold air that comes in from the blower does not cool the sides of your burn chamber too much, because that can very easily make the burner even go out if you are not paying attention for a short amount of time, and the amount of oil is running a bit lower or whatever. So it does burn as long as you keep it hot enough, but with a baffle I found that I can make it burn on lower amounts of fuel. So the other difference with burning wood is that on wood I can get the stove hotter, and that's basically because the base of the fire is so much bigger. If I make a wood fire in there, then I can burn a lot of wood at the same time, and so I can make a huge fire, and it gets pretty hot. With when I'm burning oil, I have only one spot, which is the burn chamber, which gets really hot, and that heat has to radiate into the stove, and you can get quite a long way, but you don't get it as hot as on running wood, which is also why I would like to retain the capability of burning wood next to oil. Of course, one of the big advantages of using oil is that it's much more like a set and go. Once it runs, and it runs properly, then you can forget about it and go and do your other jobs. That's actually what you come in the shop for after all. So this is the burn chamber I'm using. I've reused the brake drum that I had in my Mark I burner, which was an attempt at drip feeding. What I found is that it doesn't work well for my situation, simply because when you put this inside your stove, the draw from the chimney is simply not strong enough to get sufficient under pressure so that it burns. It's a pity, because when you use a blower, the whole thing makes a lot more noise. But I found that it didn't work for me, and I've given up on it. And with forced air, it's at least you get a decent amount of heat out of this thing. Okay, so a brake disc, and on the other side, the bottom, a small stainless steel pot. I didn't really knock it up, but it's from the heat it appears to deform a bit. So this is not really a huge thing. I mean, this is the size of my hand, so you can see it more or less. The diameter of this is like 20 centimeters at most, and that's it. And as I say, you see a lot of oil burners on YouTube, but mostly they are not really designed for heating in that either. They are standing outside with the chimney attachment to do, which is actually one of the bigger challenges, and especially certainly one of the more costly challenges of getting a heater to work. So without that, essentially you have nothing. And that's where my wood stove, of course, comes in handy, because it has all that. So when I'm able to put this inside my stove, then I have all that already, and I can simply burn the oil and have it go through the same chimney as where the wood smoke goes through. Okay, this is the brake disc. This is what I use as a baffle for now. I'm going to make something a bit more fancy at the end of the pipe. I don't think I want to weld it, but I can think something out. Main thing is that it works. As soon as you put this in, you see that the fire starts to burn much more stable, and that's because the temperature of the pot stays higher. When you want to have a clean burn, your pot needs to be hot enough to almost immediately vaporize the oil, and that is a challenge when you have only a very small setup. If you're burning in the 1 gallon per hour range, then it doesn't really matter so much. But in that way you're putting out a lot of heat, even too much for this shop. And of course also the oil supply can be finite, and in my case it certainly is. So when it burns a bit more effectively or efficiently, then that would be that is preferable. My estimation is that this thing in its current setup uses about 1 liter per hour, not much less than that. But yeah, also my demand for heat output is such that if I use less, then I simply don't get the heat out of it that is required to get it more or less comfortable here. So here's my Oilburner Mark III. So to light it, I'm using diesel. I can put that either directly in the pot, or I can put it in the funnel. So for the occasion I'm going to put it directly in the pot, so that you can see how much I'm actually putting in. This is 10 milliliter. And I'm putting in 2 injectors full. So all in all that's 20 milliliter. And that's enough to get it going. So once the oil, that's the diesel, I'm now turning on the drip and the air, because without the air the diesel is hard to ignite, because it's quite cold and it has not enough air to burn properly. So there we go. So to ignite it I'm using my gas burner. Well, basically that's it. As you can see, the flame is yellow-white and certainly pretty hot. So I can now close the furnace. Well, perhaps that's not so nice because then you are not able to see. $176. I don't think that shows up. No way.